The Muslims, the Muslims, the Muslims. These days, you can't turn on the TV, read the headlines, or scroll through Facebook without hearing about the Muslims. I'm raising 3 children, all now teenagers, all going through the British education system, all calling themselves Muslim. Knowing about the Muslims is part of my life. And I work in a British Muslim charity. I head up strategy, policy, and research. Knowing about the Muslims is part of my job. Those who aren't Muslim can feel outnumbered. There are so many Muslim school children in the UK, 1 in every 12, 1 in every 12. And some people think they are making so many demands. The Chief Inspector of Ofsted, UK's official school standards body, publicly commented about the demands being voiced by Muslims with school-aged children. Commenting they were loud, she said, "Giving way to the loudest voices is the opposite of tolerance. Giving way to the loudest voices is the opposite of tolerance." So what are these loud demands being voiced by Muslim school children? Should we give way to them? Should we tolerate them? Well, I've run focus groups for Muslim school children, aged 10 to 18, all of them minorities as Muslims in their school, boys, girls, a mix of ethnic backgrounds. I asked them about their experiences. Surely I would find everything is fine in our schools. I listened. They told me. It turns out they really wanted 3 things. The first thing was understanding. Understanding from other children that they and their faith were really not so different. One example is Christmas. Children challenge them, "Why are you having fun at Christmas? You don't believe in Jesus." Well, actually, they do believe in Jesus, peace be upon him, and in the miracle of his birth. But they're right, it's not their festival. But they do have time off at Christmas, like every single child in the UK and so many around the world. And like so many children all around the world, they have time off and they want to spend that time having fun with family and friends. They're not so different. Another example is different opinions. These are children, they're teenagers. They don't agree with their parents half the time, let alone the other 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. They're not so different. So they're looking for understanding. So the second thing the children really wanted was empathy. Empathy. They want children to view all children as equals. You can see some otherizing in jokes about groups of people. Now, when I was younger, I used to make jokes about groups of people. We all did. Jokes about Englishmen, Irishmen, and Scotsmen. The Irish were always the brunt of them. It never crossed my mind it could be a problem. I didn't go to school with anybody who was Irish. I didn't have any Irish friends. The jokes were always about the Irish not being the brightest of the bunch. Now, these days, children are making jokes about groups of people. So often, it's jokes about the Muslims. So often, it's jokes to their face. And so often, it's jokes about blowing people up. So there was Ibrahim, a teenage boy from the focus groups, who explained he was walking to his classroom one day, the day after the Paris bombings, to find a boy in his class greeted him with the words, "It didn't take you long to get back from Paris." And then there was Zach, another teenager who went with his school on a school trip to the Royal Air Force Museum. As he passed by the bomb-making display, a boy in his class surreptitiously took a photo of him next to that display, sent it around to those children in their form. Within one day, that joke had gone viral across the year groups. Children are picking up on the otherizing they are seeing happening, however inadvertently, in school and outside it. And what's happening all too often is when children do accept a Muslim child as one of us, the conversation typically goes along the lines of, "You're all right, you are. You're not like the others. As that Muslim child is more and more accepted, they are more and more humanized and seen less and less like one of the others. Some children are oblivious to all of this, completely oblivious. It's their normal. But others are affected, and they are deeply affected. They react in different ways. There are some children who consciously turn a blind eye, like Sarah, who told me, "I just laugh it off." And then there are those who choose to hide their faith. They don't want to come out with it. They don't want to draw attention. Like Hannah, who told me when drink is being passed around at parties, she says, "I don't like the taste," using that as an excuse rather than mentioning her faith. And then there are those children who feel they have to respond to everything. Like Adam, who chipped in, "It's horrific." I asked him, "What's horrific?" He said, "It's horrific feeling like I have to defend 1.6 billion people." This is a teenager. And then Bilal went even further, saying, "I find myself defending anyone who is the underdog because I can imagine how they feel." So great things are coming from these challenges. The children are championing the marginalized. They are developing resilience. They are striving to be great role models. And they're keeping up with sports, friends, Snapchat, even the occasional bit of schoolwork. But they're feeling exhausted. So some were turning a blind eye, some were hiding their faith, some were responding to everything. But almost all understood and excused the jokes and the hurtful comments. Sophia summed it up when she graciously observed, "They're very nice people. It's just not part of their frame of reference. It's what comes with the territory of being different." So the children were looking for understanding and empathy. And thirdly, freedom. They wanted the freedom to bring their whole selves to school without judgment. For example, prayer. These children prayed at home, but most of them did not feel able to ask for a space to pray at school. One girl did and was given a space, albeit a really public and busy one. Another girl found it worked really well to use the sick room at lunchtime. Most didn't want to cause a scene. Now, great schools know the value of calm, of silence, of peacefulness for their students in their busy lives. So they hold meditation weeks, they run wellness classes, they have yoga sessions. Prayer doesn't have to take long. If you're quick, you can do it in 3 minutes. Does finding a time and place for prayer really have to be that hard? And then there's fasting. When I was growing up, many of us observed Lent, giving up something we really loved. Well, I say many of us did. I gave up something I really hated, rice pudding. And I just found those school dinner ladies weren't very supportive. But many children now, our Muslim children, are observing the month of Ramadan. They're fasting. And they're actually finding that the teachers in secondary schools are very encouraging. And it's not only the teachers. Alina recounted, "My friend said, I rate that so much, having that self-restraint." The students are encouraging too. I've mentioned prayer and fasting. I haven't mentioned modest dress. It turned out to be not much of an issue. Some girls wore trousers, some wore longer skirts, some wore the uniform as it was. But you're thinking perhaps, what about the scarf, the hijab? Many didn't wear it, some did. One girl who wanted to wear it approached her headmistress with trepidation and was amazed to find that her head teacher immediately accepted her personal choice. But I've heard Ofsted officials, experts, and the general public challenge, is it really a choice? Well, what about David wearing a Jewish skull cap, the kippah? Is that a choice, or is he influenced by parents, friends, society? What about Ash wearing a turban? Is that a choice, or is he influenced by parents, friends, society? And what about Paul, wanting to be called Pauline and wear a skirt? Is that a choice, or are they influenced by parents, friends, society? Not one of us lives in a vacuum, and neither do they. But these children want to be free to bring them whole selves to school as far as possible without judgment. This goes beyond the Muslims. These are my children, your children, our children, seeking understanding, empathy, and freedom. So what can we do to help these diverse children be fully accepted? The great British public were asked, how can Muslims integrate? 3 answers scored highly. In third place, we have ban the burqa, that full body and face veil. The French counted how many women wore it before they banned it. 367 in the whole of France. Turns out to be less than 0.02% of the population. Not a big issue. So, in second place, we have monitor Islamic faith schools more closely. Again, hardly any Muslim school children are affected. Only 5% of children go to these schools. And actually, some of them are doing rather well. If you look at Progress 8, a National League table measuring student progress, of the top 3 schools, 2 of them are taken by Islamic faith schools. So, we have the #1 answer to help Muslims integrate in this country: make it compulsory for everyone to speak English. Look, I completely agree. Isn't it helpful if we all speak the language of the country in which we live? But what do the statistics show? Well, if you look at Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, who are the 2 main groups of Muslims living in England, it turns out that 94% of the young adults in England aren't speaking English. So let's look at the comparator for white and mixed. Oh, it's lower. But then, when I see the kind of conversations that I'm having with my young adults in my family, I wonder, are any of our young adults really speaking English these days? And I'm the one on the right, in case you're wondering. So if banning the burqa, monitoring Islamic faith schools, and making it compulsory to speak English are red herrings, what is the answer to helping all our children feel fully accepted and to accommodate their demands, their wants, and their needs? Let's start with freedom, the practical one. Let's support our children, whether they want to meditate, be mindful, or to pray, whether they want to observe Lent or fast during Ramadan. And if they want to express their identity through dress, let's support them in that as far as we can. And importantly, let's not judge them for their choices. And when it comes to empathy, let's help our children view all children as equals. But if we're going to talk about the Irish as being less bright than us, then it's not surprising if our child will too. And if we're going to talk about Muslims blowing people up, then it's not surprising if our child will too. And if we view any group or any individual as being lesser than us, lesser beings, lesser humans, then it's not surprising if our child will too. And finally, understanding. Let's help our children realize that no one is so different. Joe Cox, the MP tragically killed in an act of hatred, famously said, "We have far more in common than that which divides us." Let's find out what we have in common, reach out, make friends. Let's seek to really understand that which divides us. But let's go further than that. Let's recognize it's not our differences that divide us. Differences make our lives richer and our whole society stronger. Understanding, empathy, freedom. All our children have demands, wants, and needs. Some voice them loudly, some voice them quietly, some don't voice them at all. Let's not feel we are giving way to them. Let's not just tolerate them. Let's make it easy for them. Some of it's within my power, some of it's within yours, and all of it's within ours. Thank you.